In this video, I'll be showing two proofs that the Earth is flat. In the first half, I'll show how there is no curvature on the horizon, even though there are those that claim that lower portions of buildings being blocked from view by the horizon is the result of curvature. The second part of the video is dedicated to showing that the horizon is very thin. It has no depth to it, and that is evidence that the horizon is the product of perspective and cannot be the product of curvature. Okay, let's go. Hi, I just want to talk about videos like this on YouTube where someone zooms in over a patch of water and they actually zoom in on the horizon, which is really cool. But you can see objects past the horizon, whether it be buildings or ships or something, and the lower portions are blocked from view. Well, the average person looks at that and says, wow, that's curvature of the Earth. And, that's understandable. That's what we've all been taught. What I want to show is that it can't be curvature because there's no curvature on the horizontal axis. And what I want to show is that this is perfectly consistent with perspective. This is exactly what we would see. So here we go. Okay, a little something of how perspective works. See the red and the yellow line. The yellow line is your eye height. The red is the ground plane. And the ground angles up. It visually angles up to your eye level. It's on a trajectory. So the way perspective works on a flat plane is that where that intersects, the ground plane and your eye plane intersect, is where the horizon will form. So you won't see any more ground past this point. Once it intersects with your eye, right, it intersects with the center of your eye, that's it. You can't see any more ground past that point. You could see objects beyond it, but they're going to start to get blocked by that point where the ground stopped. And they're going to get blocked from the bottom up. Okay, and for those who don't believe that the horizon goes to your eye level, that all the parallel lines and planes angle to your eye level, just take a look at that wall down the left-hand side there, right? The bottom angles up and the top angles down, and where it converges is right in the center of your eye. That's where your horizon forms. The ground angles up to your eye level, and then you can't see any more ground past that point. You know what I mean? The ground comes up like a big wall. It's a big ramp. And when it gets to your eye level, you can't see any further. You cannot see any more ground, or in this case, any more water. You can see beyond it, but the bottom portions of things are blocked from view. So that's the reality of our vision. Wow, look how that water ramps up to your eye level, and it forms a wall. Incredible, zooming in on that horizon. Notice the buildings behind it, the lower portion is blocked. That's due to perspective. To explain this illustration briefly, when they say they see curvature when they're looking at the buildings, and they're saying because the lower parts disappear, they're calling that curvature. That would be on the z-axis. That's from our eyes to the horizon and beyond. And the x-axis, these are the two that we're concerned with, the z and the x. The x-axis is the horizon, or our horizontal axis. And the x-axis is the one that we don't see any curvature on. They claim to see it on the z, but they say, oh, you can't see it on the x. Well, you should and you must see it on the x, and yet we do not. Okay, here we are looking over the bay. I have it mocked up here so you can, I have the x, y, and z axis, and I got a line across the horizon. And you'll notice I have a guy over there on the right-hand side of the screen, and he's looking across to the left. So the point of this is that here we are looking across this patch of water, and the guy on the beach here says he sees curvature because the building's way off in the horizon. Once you zoom in, the lower parts disappear, so he's claiming curvature on the z-axis. Yet, we take this guy over here to the right, and let's say he's doing the same exact thing. He's looking across the same patch of water, and he sees buildings off in the distance, and the lower portions disappear, and he's claiming curvature. Now, his z-axis is our x-axis. So we should see his curvature. You see what I'm saying? So what I'm going to do here in a second is I'm going to zoom in on this whole, the zoomed out shot of the horizon, and we're going to scan it from right to left, and we're going to show that there's no curvature on the x-axis. Okay, here we go. Look for any separation between the horizon and the straight yellow line. especially at the beginning of the picture and at the end, or the right side of the picture, that's where they say you'll see curvature. So we look and we have, I put a little gap between the line and the horizon, and there we go, looks perfect. Okay, and we're going to maintain that gap all the way across. You know, I can't believe they try to get away with this, you know. They say you can't see curvature, but then they see the building's lower portions disappearing and they yell curvature. But here we are. Here's the horizon. Nice long patch of horizon, and let's look at the end. Perfect. Not an ounce of curvature. Okay, I just want to say a word about zooming in with a telescope. There are people that think that I've spoken to that if you use a telescope, your horizon will be further. The stronger the telescope, the further the horizon will move away from you. But I don't believe that's the case, because I believe the horizon is a product of the height of your eyes. The horizon is determined and formed by the ground visually angling up to your eye level. As you see in the beginning of the video here, where he's zooming in across the water, you can see a horizon form, and then as he keeps zooming in, the horizon doesn't get further away, the horizon gets closer and it gets bigger. He's zooming in on the horizon. That horizon is formed whether you're looking at it with the naked eye or a telescope. All of the telescope allows you to do is to see it larger. See this picture on the top here? If the lines were parallel and perspective wasn't a reality, then yeah, the stronger the telescope, you could just see parallel to the ground. But the fact is, perspective causes the ground to visually angle up. And where that intersects is your horizon, and it's regardless of whether or not you're using a telescope. Concerning the convergence lines that go to your horizon and your eye level, I just want to show you a few slides from my Perspective Horizon Flat Earth video. Which, by the way, is also down. I haven't put it back up yet. Here's a great example of perspective. Notice that the parallel lines do not angle or converge towards the ground, nor do they angle towards the ceiling, nor to the left or right. They angle to the eye level of the observer. This image is a product of our eyes. These are horizontal parallel lines, yet we see them not as parallel, but on an angle towards a point in the distance. Now, of course, we know that they are parallel, but they visually are not. Here you can see parallel lines made up of bricks on the walls. The wall on the left, though, is headed out towards the horizon, and all the lines angle toward the eye level of the observer. The bottom ones angle up and the top ones angle down. This is a great illustration of how all the lines angle to your eye position. You can't deny it. All of the lines converge at a center point on the horizon called the vanishing point. Parallel lines above it angle down, the lines below angle up, the sides angle in. The vanishing point is the intersection of the horizontal and vertical axis of our eye position. See, the ground and your eye level are actually parallel, but visually the ground angles up to your eye line. That's why I say you can't look down at the horizon, because the horizon angles up to your eye level. The two, your eye level and the ground plane, are parallel all the way to the horizon, but it's the bottom ground plane that angles up to your eye level. These lines are visually parallel. Our eyes visually intersect the parallel lines at the horizon. Here's a guy sitting in the middle of the ocean. You can see the water angles up and on each side of him to our eye level. It actually angles all the way around him. Just like looking down that long hallway, the floor angles up to your eye position, the ceiling angles down, the walls angle in. That's perspective. Here's another one with the guy in the boat. Whether he's in the hallway or out on the ocean, the ground plane angles up to your eye position. And so you can't see any ground past that point once it intersects with your eye height. So items or objects beyond the horizon will be blocked, especially the ground, and then lower portions of objects beyond the horizon will have their bottoms blocked from view. And here's another one. You can see the water ramp up to the eye level, and the building beyond the horizon has its lower portions obscured. It's kind of like putting your thumb out at arm's length and putting it level with your eyes. You can block things much bigger than your thumb. That's due to perspective. And the same happens here. The further away that building is, the more of it gets blocked, starting from the bottom up. Okay, take a look at this picture. And your horizon is a circle, right? So for the average height person, if your eyes are 5 to 6 feet above the surface of the ground, your horizon will form about 3 miles out. So you have about a 3-mile radius to your horizon. Now, the higher up you get, the bigger your circle.
you can see further. So, and think of it like putting a hula hoop, and this is why a lot of people confuse curvature with the circular horizon. They're seeing a circle and they're thinking that's a curve. It's not a curve. Look at this picture with the hula hoop, right? That's all it is. If you put it at eye level and level it, you're going to have that circular hula hoop will become a straight line.
Okay, that concludes the first part, dealing with that there's no curvature on the x-axis or the horizontal axis. Now I want to talk about the thin horizon, the fact that the horizon has no depth, and how that is completely consistent with perspective on a flat plane and not consistent with a sloping ball and the horizon being a product of that curvature. So let's go. Okay, here's a really quick zoom. Check out the horizon. It goes really fast. He doesn't stay there very long.
Now there's clearly an angle set up between the ground and your eyes. And so this angle of the ground visually angling up is going to intersect with your eyes. And so where it does, it seems like it stops. Like you can see rows and rows of waves here, and the very last row has definition. You can see sky between it. The waves are big, they're clear. Clearly it's a result of perspective.
I make a still of that too. I blow it up and you can check it out. Here's another zoom. Okay. Check out the choppiness and the shallowness of the horizon. You can definitely see sky between those waves. Funny how it's as if the horizon just stops. I mean, the ground plane angles up, and when it intersects with your eye position, it stops. Okay, here you can see the shallowness of the horizon. I mean, you can see right between the waves. It's as if it's one layer of waves, right?
Okay, just a quick word on this. You can see right there that line across there. There's a mirror image of the sun happening. So this is a phenomenon that occurs quite regularly over the water and over land, as a matter of fact. And that would obscure objects beyond it. Now, I call that a mirror band right there. And so it's reflecting the mirror image of what's above it and flipping it. Right? So you're not actually seeing what's there below the red line and the water. So there could be a boat beyond that, and you're not going to see that boat because it's going to reflect what's ever above it. And in this case, it's reflecting the sun, but next to the sun, it's reflecting sky. Right? So you would think the boat disappeared if it were beyond that mirror band, but it's not. It's still there. Okay, and so here you can see the mirror band is reflecting what's above it. Within the red mirror band is just a mirror image. So the sail has mirrored part of the sail and has flipped it. And so the sail and its image have merged. So it's easy to see why you could look at that and say, wow, where'd the hull go? The hull must have gone below the curvature. Well, it didn't. It's just that the mirror image of the sail is blocking the hull.
Look how you can see the sun between those big gaps between the waves. If that horizon were the result of a very gradual curvature, the horizon would be much thicker and much denser. You wouldn't have that kind of definition within the waves. Okay, see the people on the boat? They're just a layer of people, one layer, and see how they look like the horizon? It's as if the horizon is very thin and it just drops off. This is kind of blurred out, but you can see the upward trajectory and then the thin horizon. There's no depth to the horizon. It's as if it stops, and it does. Perspective would dictate that the ground visually angle up to your eye position, and when it does that, it stops. You can't see any more ground behind it. You can see things beyond it, but you can't see the ground. And notice how the waves can block several floors. I mean, 4, 5, 6 stories of those buildings. And the further away the buildings are, the more of them gets blocked. It's like holding your thumb out at arm's length. You can block things much bigger than your thumb. Again, here notice the thin horizon. It's very choppy. You can see through it. You can see between the waves. And notice on the right-hand side how when the water splashes up in the air, it falls back down on the water and it's obscured by the horizon. Again, that thin horizon is strong evidence that we're on a plane and this is perspective because of the fact that the horizon just drops off. It stops. It ramps up to your eye level and stops. Here's a zoom in on that same shot. Notice the right side of the rocks, the waves splashing behind the horizon. It's really surreal looking. I mean, what a zoom this person used. It's awesome. You see the water splashing down behind the horizon, and it's as if it's a little lower than the horizon itself. Now, none of us know what happens. I don't think any of us know what happens behind or beyond the horizon, whether it flattens out or it goes on a downward trajectory. You know, since the converging lines have already converged, maybe they then go downward. I don't know. Here I made an illustration using people instead of the water. And I arranged them so that they ramp up to eye level just like the water does when we look out over the water. And, you know, many of us have been in a big crowd of people, and when you're looking through just a couple of or a row of people in front of you, it's no big deal. You can look between their shoulders, between their heads, and you can see. But when you get a thick enough crowd and they're all the same height as you, you can't see anything because they block the view. So that's what I've been showing about the thinness or the lack of depth in the horizon that we've been looking at. So I just thought this was an illustration because most of us have been in a crowd and could relate to this. So anyway, in the first one here, you can see that resembles the water as far as it ramps up to our eye level, and the top row of men, you can see sky between their heads, and that's what we've been seeing, as if it stops right there. That's the horizon. That group on the top row is the horizon. And then we have this. This is what we would see if the Earth was a slow, gradual curve. The horizon would be thick. It would have so much depth to it that you wouldn't see between the heads. You wouldn't see the sky between the waves like we've seen in the illustrations I've shown in the video and in the pictures. So anyway, I thought this might help. It's a good way of showing it, I think. So let's recap. There's 2 points that I've made in this video. Point 1, they claim that you can see curvature because of the lower parts of the buildings disappearing, or a ship going over the horizon and the lower portions of it disappearing. They claim that's due to curvature, but yet we don't see it on the horizontal line. And I showed you scanning that video, or that picture I mean, and it totally showed no curvature. So that's debunked right there. That's one. And two is this thin horizon, or the fact that there's no depth to it. It seems to stop. Now, if it was if we were on this huge ball, it would be such a gradual curve, right, that you would have a very thick horizon. The waves would be looking through that group of heads when there's a lot of people in front of you, rows and rows and rows, and you can't see a thing because all the heads fill the gap. But that's not what we see, fill the gaps. That's not what we see when we look at the horizon. These pictures, we see sky between the waves, as if there's one layer of waves. And that's it. And so this, the thin horizon is consistent with perspective on a flat plane, where the ground, there's an angle set up between the ground and our eye height. And when those two angles converge, right, when the ground plane visually angles up and converges with the center of your eye and the height of your eye, that's it. It stops. So that thin horizon is consistent with perspective on a flat Earth.
So hey guys, Stinky Cash here. In today's video, we're going to talk about perspective and horizons, and I'm going to try to explain to the best of my ability why we see things like the sunset and why we see the bottoms of buildings being obscured by the horizon. So the first thing I would want to ask is, if we live on a flat plane, would there even be a horizon? And the answer to this question is absolutely yes. Of course there would be a horizon. So many of the so-called debunkers of the flat earth theory, including the guy in that video, The Top 10 Ways We Know the Earth is Round, they say that on a flat plane there would be no horizon and that you would be able to see infinitely.
The simple fact is, if the Earth were flat, there wouldn't be a horizon beyond which things could disappear. So from across Lake Michigan, you'd be able to see all of Chicago, as well as the Rocky Mountains.
But this is silly nonsense. A simple Google search should be able to clear this up beyond a shadow of a doubt. So for all you non-believers out there who say there would not be a horizon on a flat plane, let's go to this website called askamathematician.com and see what they have to say. Question: if the Earth was flat, would there be a horizon? If so, what would it look like? If the Earth was flat and had infinite area, would that change the answer? Answered by a physicist. There'd definitely still be a horizon if the Earth were flat. Let's repeat that. There'd definitely still be a horizon if the Earth were flat. It would be in almost exactly the same place and look essentially identical. While the Earth isn't flat, adherents to that theory are correct in that it's nearly so. And if you're standing on the surface of a round something the size of the Earth, it's difficult to tell the difference. In fact, mathematically, you can make the argument that a flat Earth acts the same as an infinitely big Earth. So basically what they're saying is the horizon on an infinite flat plane would work the exact same way as it does on a ball with the radius of 3,959 miles. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference. It works the exact same way. So let's begin by looking at this perspective diagram. As you can see, all these horizontal parallel lines all converge at the vanishing point on the horizon as they get further away from the observer. So the lines that are below us appear to go up in the frame as they get further away, and the lines that are above us appear to go down in the frame as they get further away. This is similar to what it would look like if you were looking down a long hallway. When you look at this picture of a hallway, we know that both the walls are parallel with one another. And we know that the floor and the ceiling are also parallel with each other. But our eyes do not see them that way. Our eyes converge them all at the horizon. So this is a first-person perspective. Okay, you are the observer in this picture. But let's take a look at what this would look like from a side angle. All the horizontal lines that are visually parallel, they all visually intersect at the horizon. Okay, so it forms a right triangle here, with the horizontal line being at eye level, and the hypotenuse is the ground. It appears to go up to the vanishing point, to the horizon, which is right here. So we know that all these horizontal lines converge at the horizon, and they will radiate out of the horizon. All these radiating lines are actually parallel, but our eyes don't see them that way. So a lot of these flat earth debunkers, they make side view illustrations that show these horizontal lines parallel, like this, when they should be making their illustrations like this. The higher up the horizontal parallel line, the steeper the angle at which it converges at the horizon. Okay? So notice how we have a red solid line as the ground. You can't see through the ground. The ground is a true limit. So these radiating lines here, they stop at the ground. But in an upwards direction, all these horizontal parallel lines radiating out of the horizon, they continue to go. There's no limit in an upward direction. That's why I've continued these lines. So the higher up the parallel horizontal line, the steeper it converges at the horizon, at the vanishing point. Now also, a lot of flat earth debunkers, they try to say the sun would never set on a flat earth, and they create side view illustrations like this. And they say, look, this is the angle at which the observer would see the sun, and at no point will the sun ever fall below the ground. And they say the same things for objects on the ground that are moving further away. They say the boat will never vanish beyond the horizon. But this type of side view illustration is completely wrong. You need to converge your ceiling with your floor at eye level. So it wouldn't look like this. These horizontal lines wouldn't look like this, and you wouldn't be viewing the sun and the objects on the ground like this. What actually happens is it all converges at the horizon. So this is a much more accurate and factual side view illustration. And when Cash is looking at the sun, this is the angle in which he looks at the sun. And when he's looking at objects get further away from the ground, this is the angle in which he would look to see those objects on the ground. Okay, so Most flat earth debunkers get this completely wrong. Now we know all the horizontal lines converge at the horizon, including the ground. Now I've continued the ground in this illustration so that I can make a point. Because if these lines are all converging after the horizon, let's pretend like they diverge, right? Theoretically. So I've continued the ground. Now if there was a boat sailing away from Cash, when it's closer, he's going to be looking slightly down to see it. And as it gets further away, he needs to look a little further up, and a little further up, and then a little further up. When the boat gets the same distance away from the observer as the distance to the horizon is, Cash will be looking 0 degrees, completely horizontal and parallel with the ground. He'll be looking straight ahead. Now, what if the boat gets a further distance away from the observer than the distance to the horizon? What if the boat got to here? Well, now Cash would have to look in an upwards direction to see something that we know is below him. It's not possible. It doesn't work. Now, you can only see the face of the ground up until your horizon. You can't see the face of the ground past the horizon. Okay? Cash can't see the ground from here to here, but he can see things that are above the ground for a little bit past the horizon. That's another function. The higher an object is above the ground, the further you can see it past the horizon. But you can't see the ground past the horizon. So if the boat was a little bit past the horizon, but had about 10, 20 feet of height on these sails, this is what Cash would see. Now if the boat got even further away, Cash would have to look at an even greater upwards angle to see something that is below him. And at this point, that ship's not even possible to see. This is what Cash would see. Nothing. It's past the horizon. The horizon is a set distance away. Now the same thing happens with the sun. Let's pretend like this top parallel horizontal line is the path of the sun. Cash is going to be looking this way, then he's going to look a little further down, and then a little further down. Now when the sun is at the horizon right here, this is what Cash is going to see. And if the sun gets even further past the horizon, see how he has to look down to see something that we know is up? And he's being forced to look through this solid red line, which represents the ground, which is not transparent. Cash can't see through the ground. It doesn't work. This is what Cash would see. The sun will have set. This is what Cash sees as the sun sets. Now, many people say the sun should diminish in size and vanish into a tiny dot as it gets further away. But that is not how perspective works, okay? Because we know horizontal parallel lines converge at the horizon. For them to be correct, Cash's eyes would have to be at the same altitude as the sun. If this were the case, then yes, Cash would probably see the sun diminish in size into a tiny little dot until it disappeared. But obviously, we are well below the sun, so we see it go in a downward direction. Now this video is a time lapse of the sun setting from an airplane. Being in the airplane at over 30,000 feet, this pushes our horizon back extremely far, allowing us to see a greater distance. From this altitude, it becomes more apparent that the sun does diminish in size as it gets further away until it hits the horizon, at which point it completely vanishes. This is exactly what we should expect to see. There's no reason we should expect to see the sun continue to diminish in size until it vanishes into a tiny dot. That is not how perspective works. So why do we see the bottoms of the buildings obscured by the horizon in this picture? Well, it's the same reason why we see boats vanish, and it's the same reason why we see a sunset. We know that the distance to the horizon is an actual set distance. So let's say the distance to this horizon is 3.1 miles. Now let's also say the distance to this island with the city skyline is also exactly 3.1 miles away. Well, if this were the case, because we could see the face of the ground all the way to the horizon, we'll be able to see the beginning of the shoreline of this island. But if the horizon is 3.1 miles away, what if the island was 4 miles away? Well, what's going to happen is it's going to appear to be a little smaller, but it's also going to start bottoming out because you can only see the face of the ground up until your horizon. You can't see the ground past your horizon. So now let's say the island was 4.5 miles away. What would happen? Well, it would continue to look smaller, but it would also bottom out. And as the island was further away from you, it would bottom out until all you could see are the tops of the buildings, and eventually you won't be able to see anything. Now, if you were to zoom in on a horizon, you're not going to be able to see the ground any further past your horizon. All you're going to do is magnify the things that you could already see to make them appear bigger and clearer. So I'll repeat, zooming in with a camera or zooming in with binoculars or a telescope does not allow you to see further in a horizontal parallel direction with the ground. All you'll be doing is zooming in on your already existing horizon, making things bigger and making things clearer. It does not allow you to see further. Now, this kind of obstruction would happen on a ball and a flat plane, but there would be one big difference. On a ball, the further away the observer was, the more these buildings would appear to be leaning over, because your local location on Earth is always on top of the ball. You always feel upright. So if the observer was, say, 50 miles away from these buildings, the buildings are going to have a slight tilt to them. They're not going to appear vertical and parallel. That's the big difference between perspective on a ball and perspective on a plane. We never see these buildings tilting over. We never see a boat tilt over. We just see them bottom out, but they remain completely vertical. The only other real difference between perspective on a ball and perspective on a plane is that on a ball, the higher up you go, the further down you would have to look to see your horizon. The horizon would fall, or it would appear to fall, as you went up. On an infinite flat plane, however, the horizon is always going to remain at your eye level. And in reality, we know that the horizon always remains at eye level. So reality matches up with the perspective optics of a flat plane, and it does not match up with the perspective optics of a round ball. So as you can see, these objects in the distance aren't leaned over, they're not slanted, they're just obscured by the horizon because they're a further distance away than the horizon is, so they appear to bottom out. They're not leaning over. Okay, so as we zoom out, guess what? We have the same horizon. Zooming in didn't allow us to see further. All it did was magnify things and make them clearer to see. Things we could technically see with our human eye if our eyes were good enough to see that far. Learning perspective really is the most important thing to realize you live on a flat plane. So many of my commenters and so many of my globe earth defenders, they don't understand perspective. They all think they do, but they don't. They understand size perspective, that objects appear to get smaller as they get further away, but they don't understand horizons at all. So many of my commenters actually say that there would not be a horizon on a flat plane. Once you say that, the argument is over. They don't teach you perspective in schools. The only people that learn perspective are artists and like architects. They don't teach this to the common person. Why do you think that is? They don't want you to understand how your senses work. They want to keep you as dumbed down and as uninformed as humanly possible. This makes it easier to control you. They want you to deny your own senses, deny all common sense, and then put your faith in them. Trust them. Trust the experts. They know better. They're smarter than you. You're dumb. They're smart. Trust them. The Matrix relies on this type of thinking. They don't want people to be able to critically think for themselves. So that's the end of my video. I hope you learned something. I hope you changed your perspective on the flat earth subject. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And stay tuned for some more flat earth videos. But in the meantime, this is Stinky Cash saying, keep it flat.